Welcome to the Cougar Tailgate, where BYU fandom lives. Here's your hosts, Sydney Carlson and Cole Wissinger.
Good afternoon, Cougar fans. Like the man said, this is the Cougar Tailgate. My name is Cole Wissinger, and that over there is Sydney Carlson. We are back and cozy in our normal studio. Nothing to shake things up. We got to get focused because this is the final stretch.
And what a week. What a week to be watching Cougar basketball with a fun old number next to BYU's name this week.
How about that? Ranked in the AP poll for the first time since the Jimmer times.
Since Jimmer years, yep.
I'll be dang.
Since I was a student here on campus.
This time last week, it was Valentine's Day had just happened. We're entering into a President's Day long weekend, and BYU was playing San Diego.
TJ runs it, lobs it to Yo, and the hammer! The alley-oop throwdown!
They want a timeout.
With 11 seconds. Timeout taken. So BYU goes up 72-71 with 11.1 to go. And now, truly, the Cougars won defensive series for the win.
Spoiler alert. That defensive series went well. Final score is 72-71. BYU victorious, but way too dang close for comfort against San Diego.
This team loves to just make my heart stop. And yep, back-to-back games. We'll get to Santa Clara, but USD, there was never any moment where I felt like, yep, we got it. We got this in the bag. There was no control. And it's funny because we talked to San Diego's play-by-play guy last week, and he basically was saying, like, don't count San Diego out. Like, this team is playing a lot better basketball. And I'm going to be honest, dear listener, I was like, that sounds like lip service to me. But he's
a fan of the team.
Absolutely correct.
Turns out San Diego came out and was playing, and, BYU was in their backyard, and that home crowd, once they got a taste of, ooh, this could happen.
Yeah.
They were loud.
It feels like that's been BYU's downfall a little bit, too. Like, unless they are able to take a really strong lead and hang on to it, any kind of trip up in the rhythm of what they're doing really, upsets their gameplay. And I think that's going to be something that they need to look at going forward, is just, keeping your head down and staying in the game and not letting a couple missed shots or a couple good shots for the other team get to your head.
Kind of a lot of missed shots. So we just got done bragging about how BYU had the best three-point percentage of any team in the entire country, and they still do. It turns out one game cannot sway things too much when you have a large enough sample size. Freshman year statistics taught me that. But this one game was pretty bad. And especially that first half of this one game, BYU just could not get anything to drop. It just kept feeling like we were that one three-pointer away from starting to run away. And it never happened. And they had to grit and grind all the way to the end of this game.
It goes right back to that whole living and dying by the three situation we talked about last week. And unfortunately, there were too many times where BYU would step behind that three-point line, and the anxiety that you felt as they went to take that shot was warranted. But
fortunately, when we say live or die, even when BYU died by the three, the death here is just a 1-point victory. As Coach Pope has said a couple times, it's really awesome to be able to have teaching moments and still have a W.
And win, yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that went into the San Diego game is, as BYU was struggling from the three, San Diego was getting a lot of action down low. Yoli got into foul trouble really early on. BYU still struggling through some injury issues as players rotate in and out of the lineup, and San Diego kind of had their way in the paint. They out-rebounded BYU 36-27. Their field goal percentage down low where shots are easy was better because they were just taking more. It seemed like they could, every time down the court, down the field, down the whatever it is that you play basketball on, they could just get down, stop, get it inside, one move, you're in.
Right. And that's been the story in a lot of games this year, unfortunately, is that BYU has been dominated in the paint. And things get better when you put Yoli on the floor, and obviously we really struggled when we didn't have his size. But even still, it seems like that's an area that, we're a lot better typically behind the arc and not so much inside it. It just it's going to be something that I think is going to plague this team if they don't look to overcome it.
I agree. But There was another game this week where BYU's fortunes behind the three, at least one particular BYU player's turn behind the three-point arc, turned really well.
Toulson out front. Everything well outside the basket right now for BYU. TJ beats his man to the paint, pulls up from 10 feet, shoots and scores again! Yeah. TJ Haws gives the Cougars a 7-point lead. 2:15 to go.
Red-headed assassin.
Thank you, Mark Durant. He is, isn't he?
Oh, boy.
As Greg Wrubell alluded to during the Santa Clara game, the Thursday night of this week, all of BYU's shots were well beyond the basket. They were shooting well from three-point, and they just kept going with that because that's what was working, and the other mid-rangers weren't as well.
Yeah. Well, there was a dime, I remember, from Yoli towards the in that end stretch.
Yep.
And I don't know if that crowd was any louder than after Yoli hit that three-point shot. There's something extra exhilarating when one of your big guys shoots a three. So that was fun. It seemed like the crowd at the Santa Clara game was a little confused about what was happening during that game. I mean, coming off of the San Diego game and having like a close matchup there, people, it just seemed they were like, wait, what's going on? Like, we're here for we're here for a 20-point lead. I don't know, the energy in that arena was pretty low right up until about 5 minutes to go, and BYU finally was like, okay, enough of this. Let's get out of here. Let's get the win. And let's look ahead.
It was a tie game with less than half of the second half to go. Santa Clara was right there the whole time. And it was confusing because for this one, peek behind the curtain, I was in this very building helping with the baseball broadcast with Jason Shepard on the call. And so as BYU was pulling out to a comfortable lead against Cal Poly in the 7th and 8th innings, I kept checking the BYU basketball score, seeing, it's only 10 at halftime.
Yep.
Oh, they're catching up. Oh, it is tied now. Oh, what is going wrong? And so sometimes I would sneak out when I was, if there's only one out, I knew we wouldn't go to break for a couple, and I'd go peek my head around the corner and take a look at the game to see what is going on here.
Right. Well, and even at halftime, like that 10 at halftime really was not indicative of what the rest of the game felt like. Where I'm at, very focused on like in-game promotions, and it was a fuller game than normal. And a couple times I was so focused on what was going to happen at the next time out that I wasn't even necessarily paying attention to what was going on. But I'd look up at the score and be like, wait, why are we only up by 2?
Right.
It was happening so fast. And for the most part, like it was just neck and neck right up until it mattered, I guess.
And then when it did, TJ really was the guy that helped it pull through.
TJ driving Williams to the rim. Stop. Pop. Score! TJ to the 10 for 2, and the Cougs up 9. It's all TJ Haws.
TJ freaking Haws.
TJ freaking Haws indeed. Mark Durant with the apt analysis, because when you needed him to come through,
right,
they did start to go on that run and expand the lead just to the comfort zone and just to come out. You look at the final score, 85-75. It's a 10-point win. That's about what you expect for Santa Clara. It's a little closer maybe, but not representative of the close game it was the whole time to get there.
Absolutely not. And the end of that game dragged out. Santa Clara was not going to go out of there without a fight. They were fouling our guys every chance they got. And I think we had probably 5 or 6 stoppages in the last minute. Like it was very intense.
College basketball games normally take less than 2 hours. This one almost 2.5, because just that last 5 minutes real time.
Yep.
Took a while.
That 5 minutes easily 20 to 30 minutes. It's very long.
Again, I know, because the baseball game ended up ending before basketball postgame, which was not supposed to happen when we were scheduling things. As BYU was wrapping up their second victory of the week the hard way, Gonzaga was taking the court for San Francisco, and as BYU was finishing, San Francisco was keeping it tight in that game. Gonzaga ended up going on runs as they do, but now BYU's focus turns squarely to that top team in the WCC, the number 2 team in the country. If you look at the AP, they fall from 1 for reasons that are beyond my understanding, because they've kept winning.
Right.
They're an ordained number 1 seed into the NCAA tournament, provided they continue to win. which BYU hopes will not be the case.
And at the end of the day, you know what, dimensions, all that's fun, but this deal is about learning to win as a team. And these guys prove to themselves that they can go through a game where we're trying really hard. We just are we just can't quite find answers a lot, and these guys just gutted out and made huge plays. Seniors made huge veteran plays down the stretch to win a game, and that adds belief. You know, as you go towards postseason, you're trying to take every shot that you can towards adding belief into your arsenal, and these guys added a little bit tonight. I'm super proud of them.
Focus is on Gonzaga, so when we come back, we'll be speaking with their play-by-play man, Tom Hudson. Stay right here with the Cougar Tailgate.
In case we haven't mentioned it, the number 2 team in the country is coming into the Marriott Center tonight. Be there. Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. I'm Cole Wissinger. If there is a single team in the WCC that BYU fans should be the most familiar with, it is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. They have the richest history and the most consistent success in this conference. Today, to help us learn a little bit more past the headlines of the Zags, it is their play-by-play man of the past 18 or so years, Tom Hudson. Welcome into the Cougar Tailgate, Tom.
Hey, Cole, great to be here. I'm glad you were able to reach out and we were able to connect. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. We're looking forward to the game tonight. Just the great atmosphere that we always get in Provo when we come down for a game.
Oh, and we've been talking on the show, and we're going to continue to a little bit, just all the fans that are around. They've been camping out since Thursday night when we got out of a Santa Clara game by the skin of our teeth. And honestly, that's where I want to start here with you, too. Thursday looked a little hairy for y'all against San Francisco, too. As a play-by-play guy, do you get a little stressed on the call when it seems like every single game has got to be a win for you guys? And it ends up being
interesting. Yeah, well, it is interesting, Cole, because we even talked about it before the game on Thursday in our pregame show. You look at a school like Duke. They can go to North Carolina State and lose by 22, and it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. But if we were to slip and lose a game, like Thursday night, maybe to San Francisco, who I think has a pretty good team, then all of a sudden it would be all the chatter that we've heard over the years, Gonzaga's no good and they can't beat anybody and they don't belong. And so, yeah, it does get a little bit stressful because you just feel like the margin for error for us is pretty slim, and that actually has been kind of fun to see where the league is with BYU playing so well and St. Mary's playing so well. Hopefully we'll get a little more recognition maybe, because it is kind of hard feeling like every night you have to go into win games or it's really going to hurt, kind of your national reputation. So, yeah, it does get a little stressful. I think everybody in the kennel on Thursday night was kind of looking around saying, wait a second, we don't lose here very often. What the heck's going on?
Well, and yeah, that game was played in the McCarthy Athletic Center, the kennel. Can you give us a little history of that wonderful arena and just what kind of environment it is for one of the best teams in college basketball?
Well, Cole, it's a great building, and it's really kind of neat how it all came about. We played in the Marriott Center for years and years, and then when we made that run to the Elite Eight way back in 1999, there's some people on campus who decided that maybe it was time for us to build a new arena. So the old kennel was about 3,000 seats, 3,500 seats. And, we built the McCarthy Athletic Center. There's 6,000 seats now, and it's really a state-of-the-art building. The locker rooms are fantastic. The atmosphere in there is really great. The one thing that they did a nice job of was, they kept the students right on the sideline. And so, they're right there kind of in the players' faces, and there's a lot of noise. And, so the atmosphere still feels really great. So it's fun. I mean, we've been so good in that building. I think last night or Thursday night, when we won that game, I think we're now 222-15 since we opened the McCarthy Athletic Center in 2004. So we don't lose there very often. It's a great home court advantage, and it really is. I always tell the visiting radio guys, because we always talk before games, just kind of swap stories and talk about how our teams are doing. You say, hey, when our students are here and they're raucous and they're really into it, it is as fun as atmosphere as you'll find out there, and actually BYU honestly is one that I always, try to compare to. I said, now BYU is different because it's, 3 times the people that we have, but, it is when it gets going, it is one heck of a fun place for a basketball game. Just a great environment. And, Like I said, they did a great job of building the building. And for us, it was kind of interesting because, we're not that big a school. I mean, I think our attendance right now, we're in the enrollment. Yes, thank you. I was thinking attendance in the kennel. Which
we're talking basketball.
But our enrollment, the enrollment is about 8,500. Undergrad, I think we're around 6,000. And so, they didn't want to try to build a big, huge, 12 or 15,000 seat arena. They wanted to keep it, in kind of context of the size of our school. And to be honest, we've sold out every time since the building's been open. So, there's a great demand here. And so that makes it fun being around town. That, if you get to go to a Gonzaga game, it's a really special deal. It's a special event, and you get that feel when you're inside the building.
Do the fans and the student section especially have any, unique things that they do during the game? Is there a chant that they have or songs that they get along to?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, we've got this stuff, the pregame stuff, which I think a lot of people are doing now, which we've got Zombie Nation is a big one for us. And then, they've got a couple other songs that they kind of, roll in and out. And, it has been interesting because we've had some traditions over the years. And then I think, stuff kind of moves back and forth a little bit, which is kind of interesting. And I think they're maybe trying to find a few more, kind of deals that they can really hang their hat on. Because it is, like I said, when the students are into it, it is so much fun. And, they're loud. And the game on Thursday night against San Francisco, for us, it's a little bit different than a BYU because the student section is right on the floor. And so, guys are inbounding the ball and, you've got, everybody kind of pointing at them and waving their fingers. And it's been phenomenal. BYU has had more success than anybody in our building. Of those 15 losses, BYU's given 3 of them to us. You do the math, and that's a pretty impressive percentage
it
for
is.
the Cougars to come in here because not a lot of teams have been able to come in here and win.
So right there, right when it opened, though, that middle 2000s chunk, that was when Adam Morrison was there. You were opening the new arena. Want to just walk us through some of the All-American names, some of those players that you've gotten to know over the years that have played for Gonzaga?
Well, it was really neat because that was kind of the time where Gonzaga was establishing itself. We made those couple of runs in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and then we opened up the building, and there was kind of a new wave that came through. And like you talked about, Adam, who actually is my color analyst, he's been with me now for 3 years.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's been great. And he moved back to Spokane when his playing career was over. And so, he's been with me now. Like I said, this is his 3rd season, so that's been awesome. But, those were really fun years there. And actually, the West Coast Conference tournament back then, they tried for a little bit to rotate sites every year to play it on a home campus. Mm-hmm. And so we actually, in Adam's junior year, which was 2006, we hosted it. And we had 2 games that we had to rally to win. And just the environment there was so crazy. It was so much fun. Like I said, we won 2 close games, and the fans were going crazy. And that was fantastic. And then, it kind of carried on. And I think that was one of the biggest things about building that new arena was, when our streak started in 1988, 1999, and then in 2000, a lot of the kids that we were recruiting were, kind of kids that had a chip on their shoulder. Maybe were overlooked a little bit. And then, with the new building and the new, facilities and, all the shiny stuff that kids like these days, now we've gotten to a point where, we've been able to recruit higher level kids. We got a kid by the name of Micah Downs who was a McDonald's All-American who started his career at Kansas, who came and played for us. And, we had other kids, Jeremy Pargo and Josh Heitfeld, and that team was really good. They came through in 2009, a lot of talent, Matt Bolden. And then it just kind of has continued to grow from there. And, if you watch the NBA at all, I don't, honestly. but I just know our guys who are playing. Domantas Sabonis is an NBA All-Star.
Oh, yeah.
He played his first All-Star game. And then Rui Hachimura and Brandon Clark from last year. Those guys both played in the Futures game. And, Kelly Olynyk has been playing. He actually played he was on our team that played against BYU when Jimmer and company beat us in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. Kelly's still playing for Miami. Zach Collins, who played for us in the national championship game team, he's playing for Portland right now. I tell you, we are actually next Thursday, so our next game after tonight,
mm-hmm.
Are going to hang Adam's number in the rafters.
Oh, that's
nice.
And
so he'll go up there, next to John Stockton, who I'm sure most of you
there
guys
we go.
know.
I wasn't going to let you stop before we got to the name that our Utah fans are going to recognize. John
exactly.
Stockton went to Gonzaga.
Yeah, exactly. And so Adam's number will be up with him and Frank Burgess, who played for us in the 60s at our school's all-time leading scorer and actually became a federal court judge. So, Adam's number is going up there with some select company, one of the top 50 players of all time. And, and a guy who came out of nowhere to, to become one of the best in the world at what he does. So it's really exciting. And it's funny because I was talking with one of our newspaper writers last night. He was asking me to talk about, some of my favorite stories about Adam. And it's funny kind of going down memory lane. And, you think about all the things that happened when Adam was playing and how much fun it was and how exciting it was. Every time you went to the kennel, Cole, you didn't know. Adam might go and score 50. You had no idea. It was that much fun. There was so much anticipation every night. That was a great, great time in Gonzaga basketball history. And I was really fortunate to be there for that. That was, a few years into my tenure. And I also got to see Adam play in high school. He was a Meade high school kid from right here in Spokane. And so, it was fun to see that happen. And to be honest, it's been really cool from, seeing him as a high school kid to becoming the nation's leading scorer in college. And now he's moved back to Spokane, and I get to work with him on the radio and gotten to know him a little bit better. So it's been a whole lot of fun for me to be able to do that.
I love hearing those stories. And we got some of the players. You guys have one of the preeminent coaches in all of college basketball as well. As the radio guy, you get to know Mark Few a little bit closer than I think everyone else. As a BYU fan, I'll be honest with you. I see his face and it gives me nightmares because I associate it with that brooding on the sideline, getting in everyone's face and then normally ending up with the BYU loss. But what's Mark Few the guy like?
Well, Coach Few is great. And Cole, I'll share a story from a few years ago when
Please.
we were in 2017 when we made it to the national championship game against North Carolina. And, there had been so much talk about him and what his career meant, a few years prior to that. So we went to the Elite Eight that first year in 1999, and we hadn't been back. And in 2015, we made it, and everybody was kind of, there was all the monkey on your back and, all of that talk like, hey, are you, a good coach really because you've never been to the Elite Eight? A lot of that stuff was going on. So, so we made it there, and then, 2 years later, we made it to the Final Four, and he was asked again that same question, kind of, okay, does this validate your career, and does this make, your career complete, and what does this say about you? And Coach had one of the greatest responses I've ever heard. He said, you know what, he's like, I grew up the son of a minister who led his church for 50 years. He said, I've got a lot bigger things to live up to and a lot more important things to worry about, than my legacy as a basketball coach. He said, obviously this is great, and he's as competitive a guy as I know.
Mm-hmm.
But he really put it in perspective and said, hey, you know what? This is more important than just the basketball. My life is not going to be any more full, having won a few basketball games in a row in March as compared to, the other things that I have. Family is extremely important to him. And like I said, living up to his dad and what his dad was able to do and how many things he did to help other people. So I think that gives you a little bit of insight into him because it's a neat thing to see, and it is fun to see with all the high stakes and all the pressure, and you see these guys in those situations. It is fun, Cole, to be able to see it behind the scenes a little bit and see kind of the human beings behind, like you said, the guy that you see on the sideline that gets fiery at times, to say the very least.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's the kind of insight I was looking for because there's a guy behind it, and I love hearing those stories. And I think it's kind of indicative also to that small-town college environment that he can be a celebrity to all the people around, but he's still, just a dude. You want to take us just a little bit more into Spokane? What's the town like, and what's the feel? Maybe what's one of your favorite restaurants up there for the next time BYU's in town for a game?
Well, I tell you what, Cole, the neat thing about Spokane, it's a blue-collar town, and this Gonzaga program couldn't have kind of personified this city anymore than that group that came up and made this whole thing start. Back, and I was actually, before I was on radio, I was working in TV, and so I was here and covering that run to the Elite Eight in 1999, and it was unbelievable. Banners everywhere and, pep rallies and, thousands of people showing up, for the send-offs to send GU to the airport, on the way to go and play in a tournament game. They just caught the imagination of this city. And like I said, they personified everything that our city is about. And, now, you'd be hard-pressed to go around town and not see somebody wearing a Gonzaga shirt. It is really taken over this community. And again, Coach Few does such a great job. Our guys are involved in the community up here. They visit kids in hospitals and they do a lot of things. And a lot of it's behind the scenes. Coach Few doesn't do any of that stuff to get, any kind of publicity or, to say, hey, look at me, or hey, look at my guys, here's what they're doing. They do so much of it behind the scenes that nobody ever knows about. And And, from time to time, you'll be walking around town and somebody will stop me and share a story of, oh, hey, gosh, Coach View, they came into this and what a wonderful thing it was for us. So, they have really taken over this town, and our players understand it. They get a wonderful feeling for how much, they mean, not just to Gonzaga, but to our entire community. So it's a really special relationship between GU and Spokane. And boy, talk about restaurants. We've got some good ones coming in here, Cole. It has been really neat to see. Spokane is really on the rise here over the last couple of years. We've had a couple of guys that are James Beard Award-winning chefs. A couple of guys who were actually from Spokane that have moved back here and opened up places. One of them was on, and my wife works for Visit Spokane, which is like our Chamber of Commerce, and I should know some of these
awesome.
things. She's going to kick me when I don't remember the names of the restaurants. But, on one of the cooking shows that he did really well, and he came back to Spokane, and they've opened up some restaurants. And so we've got some really good ones. I have a favorite I've been going to for 25 years. It's up on the South Hill. It's called Hogan's. It's a little diner. It's a 50s style, and I've known the owner forever, and it's a great spot. I love going there. And then downtown, there's just, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's opened. There are a lot of things that are going on. I laugh. I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old now, so our dining tastes have moved a little bit.
You also have a McDonald's there, right? Like with a play place.
Yes. Yep, and we do have that. As a matter of fact, we were debating between that and donuts when we went out before I left town, and so. But yeah, there are a ton of great restaurants here, and gosh, I should have a few of those in my back pocket that I remember. But it really is, Cole. It's a neat city, and it's really, like I said, I think it's up and coming. I've been here for 25 years. I'm a Texas guy, and I moved here because I'd never been in the Northwest. And I thought I'd come and work for a few years and go back home. And
you're still
25
there.
Years later, yeah, I'm still here. I've set down roots, and it's a special community. It's a fun place. It's just big enough that we get a lot of things going on here, but it's also just small enough that we don't have a ton of traffic. Getting to the airport's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side is, we get the majority of the Broadway plays, and most of the concerts come through, and, we've got a great symphony, and they've got a home, the Fox Theater, which is just a beautiful, beautiful place. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in this town.
It's that perfect middle ground. All right, Tom, you got me convinced. I like you too much right now. Let's talk about the game, all right? Okay. What do you think? It's my last question always when I talk to folks. What's going to happen tonight? Give me a little bit of insight, just briefly.
I think one of the biggest things is going to be for us, and we've talked about this throughout the year. We've had a great year, obviously, but we lost so many players from last year's team, and we had 4 guys that 2 of them are in the NBA, 2 other guys who signed NBA contracts, and then 2 seniors who were really good. So we lost 6 guys from our team, and we've got a lot of new faces. Some of them are grad transfers that are older, but kind of some of our questions this year have been, okay, these guys have never been into this environment. How are they going to respond to that? And you can't explain, I don't think, BYU and what it is, and going into the Marriott Center and 19,000 people and the noise and everything that goes on there. Just a game day, like I talked about before, it's as good a game day experience as we ever see. I mean, we love it. Being on the radio where you're not judged on whether or not we win or lose. You go in and you're looking around and you're like, hey, man, this is really cool.
It's fun.
So, I think that'll be one of the questions is how do our guys handle the environment. It's going to be fun to see, and hopefully for us, Killian Tilly's going to be okay, and he's been battling an ankle injury, and he's such a good player for us. He played on Thursday night and scored 22 points, but he didn't play at Pepperdine, so he's missed 9 games so far this year, kind of with just, a few injuries. The poor kid he's been beat up his entire career, and such a shame because he's such a nice young man, and you really root for him. But, if he's playing, I think it makes for a really fun game. If not, we're a 6-person rotation, and so at times that can be, a little bit problematic, not a whole lot of rest. So I think there are a couple of things to watch, but I think for us, Cole, to see how we handle kind of the initial, excitement and the initial surge, and then what happens if BYU makes a couple of runs, how do we handle that?
2 ranked teams are going head-to-head in the Marriott Center tonight. Tom Hudson just let us a little bit behind the curtain of the Gonzaga side of things. Thank you so much for coming on the Cougar Tailgate today.
Hey, Cole, absolutely. It's great talking to you.
When we come back, we'll talk about how the Rock, the BYU fans, are preparing for tonight's game. Don't go anywhere. back into the Cougar Tailgate. My name is Cole Wissinger, and sitting right over there is Sydney Carlson. How are you today?
I am great. There's a lot going on this week, and we are here to talk about it.
It's a busy Saturday. There's been some sports we mentioned already. I was helping broadcast some baseball. They're in the middle of a series. Men's volleyball has taken off, as they always do.
As they always do.
And then there is, of course, basketball. And the rock student section here at BYU spread pretty thin trying to get to all the events, but they are focused on the number 2 team in the country facing off against BYU's number 23. We thank again Tom Hudson coming on from Gonzaga's media team to help us get to know Gonzaga a little bit better. And he talked about the kennel. We've got the rock, and it is going to be rocking at the Marriott Center tonight.
Oh, 100%. It's our first official sellout before we actually even get to the game. Fun fact, listener.
Wow.
And I think it might be the first official sellout pregame since I started working at the athletic department 3 years ago. So there's an excitement around this game and this team that has been lacking for a while. And I think it's really exciting to see the success that this team has had under Mark Pope in his first year. Like, that's pretty rare.
Let's remind you there, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's so cool. And on my drive over here, I already saw
the tangible manifestation.
The tangible, yeah, exactly. The actual
the
energy and the cries of cold coming from hundreds of students lined up in tents.
So to give you an idea, the Marriott Center sits right next door to the broadcasting building, as a matter of fact. And as of Thursday night, after BYU beats Santa Clara, tents start popping up. And by Friday morning, there is a line that kind of starts stretching down, heading toward campus. Mm-hmm. And as people have gotten in and the line has extended, it's all the way across the bridge right now. If you know BYU's campus at all, there are quite a few students that are willing to brave the cold Provo winter. 16 degrees, I think, is what it was a couple nights ago. Intense to get good seats for this Gonzaga game. Sydney, you ever sleep in a tent in 16-degree weather to watch a basketball game?
I cannot say I have. I had the great fortune of, as a student, working in sports. Yeah. So I pretty much had a seat somewhere to watch the game.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have to camp out in a tent.
It's an experience. I don't think they have to either. If I'm trying to get in the mind of the kind of person that would sleep in a tent. Because, honestly, there is no scenario that I would want to be in a tent. Folks are bemoaning the demise now of the Boy Scouts. I am celebrating. My parents tried to get me to do the dang Scouts 3 separate times. I've enrolled as a tenderfoot and done the little physical fitness test or whatever you do the first week of scouting 3 separate times. Never made it to whatever comes after tenderfoot, star,
couldn't tell ya.
Class. First class, second class. Eventually, there's an eagle in there. I am 3 times a tenderfoot and have never gone on a proper camping trip because I just didn't want to. That is not my style, and so but if I was going to do it, it would
ticks
probably
and stuff in Pennsylvania. I don't blame you.
It is, and it's cold there too, and it's the outdoors. I don't know.
He wants to be outside
when I could be inside watching a basketball game. Honestly, when I could be inside watching a game from my own television too, to escape the dynamics of having to dibs your seat in the stadium. But I get it, right?
Yeah.
It's more the fact that you were in that line and you'll be able to tell your kids someday that the time BYU knocked off number 2 Gonzaga, I was in the line of tents.
It's almost goes beyond sports, I'm finding out. So I was talking to one of our rock board members earlier today, and he was talking about how they've had to move the tents a couple times. Yeah. It's been a whole situation, but he said he ran into a girl that was like, so I haven't really been following the basketball team. Like, how have they been doing? And he's like, I'm sorry, you're sleeping in this tent and you don't follow basketball? And she's like, yeah, I just thought it would be fun. So, there's a little bit of hey, this is a college experience that I want to have, and I want to be out here with my friends, and we can sit here and laugh about the good times when we were sleeping in 16-degree weather, and hopefully it pays off for them in some way.
The cool thing about the Marriott Center is they're going to have a good time no matter what once they get in there. But BYU's not the only college campus across the nation that gets excited for college basketball to the point of insanity, you might say, to want to sleep in tents. I practiced this too, and I already Krzyzewskiville, Coach Kville.
Yeah.
Over in Duke, they have tents every time they do UNC, and they kind of have to schedule. The most fun I had looking into this was seeing the rules and regulations of how they manage tents, because we're dealing with it right now this week too.
Absolutely, we have very similar rules, I'm sure.
But yeah, and so it's a whole big deal for the Cameron Crazies of Duke when they set up the hundreds of tents that for months at a time. You have to have a certain number of people in the tent per night, per day. Coach K will sometimes come by after practice. He'll bring everyone pizza.
That's cool.
It is an environment there in Duke.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. We've done that from time to time. I think, true story, I think a little bit our facilities team has tried to not discourage, but also not encourage students to be intense. So,
well, let's rewind it back to the beginning of the football season. The whole idea of the rock line was kind of pulled back on a little bit so that they could do the Cougar Canyon thing, and we're giving you a place to go be crazy and have your college experience without...
The potential for chaos is high when you have people
trampling,
intense, trampling, pushing, shoving, elbowing.
Black Friday scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they try to keep it a little more low-key, but I love the idea of a coach coming by and thanking them for being there and supporting, but yeah, it's an experience, and it's fun to see. I remember back in Jimmer's senior year, there were lines every game. It wasn't just the Gonzagas or the Utahs. It was every game, because being able to see Jimmer
live
was worth that. And so it's fun to see that kind of excitement has returned to the Marriott Center, and I hope it translates to a very loud arena tonight.
That's right. That's the number 23 team going against number 2. So the Rock, it is your job, and everyone else that fills the other 18,000 seats in that stadium, to give them a good environment to play the game. There's a couple other weird football traditions about gathering for the game that I thought were kind of noteworthy here as well. Ole Miss has the Grove, which is their place where they do their tailgating beforehand, and my personal favorite is the University of Cal Berkeley has what is called Tightwad Hill, which is just right up my alley, where their stadium is kind of built in a valley of sorts, and there's a hill that goes up above it where you can actually kind of sit up there for free. It's Tightwad Hill, and sort of see what's happening on the field down there. It's the nosebleediest seats you can possibly imagine, that you just sit on the hill outside the stadium to kind of try to watch the game. And it becomes a whole environment where, people, it lends itself to parties, as college atmospheres kind of do, but it's another place where kids gather for sporting events around, the things around sports.
That's
Tightwad
so
Hill.
I love
Cal
that.
Berkeley.
That's so. It's a great name. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. We went and saw when BYU played Jared Goff and we played against them, Cal Berkeley. We were at that game, and I'm trying to remember. I remember the valley of it all, but I would have loved to just call over to Tightwad Hill.
Hey. There are every student section, every college basketball place has their thing. And so before we head out, I want to give you a little quiz, because some of these are just they're so cleverly named that if you think about it, you'll be able to figure it out.
Ooh, okay. Well,
but I don't think you will.
I didn't study for this quiz. I just want everyone to know.
There are some fun ones. We'll start easy. The kennel is
Gonzaga.
Right. There's also a dog pack, so it's another...
Nevada's the wolf pack, but dog pack?
The name of the student section, it's a team we played in football this year.
Oh, no.
Go back and run through the mascots in your head. The Utes don't have a dog.
Nope.
The Aggies don't have a dog.
At home? We played them at home? Or on the road?
There was a home game.
Oh.
It was an away game last year.
Goodness. Why is
in the Pac-12. Oh, their little dog wears a purple cape.
Washington.
The Huskies. They're the dog pack.
That makes sense. I have conveniently blacked that game out for my memory.
How about the Who Crew?
Ooh.
There's a BYU tie-in here as well, if you
see, I want to say it's See, it makes me think of like a military school.
Hoorah. Maybe. No, it's not.
Ah.
So the Virginia
Oh, yep.
Cavaliers.
That makes sense.
Who
Bronco
crew?
Mendenhall.
How about the Oakland Zoo is the name for the section of students you'd think would be in
Berkeley.
Oakland, so one of the Bay Area schools, right?
Yeah.
Nope, not at all. There's a little town right outside Pitt in Pennsylvania called Oakland, and that's where the stadium actually is. So the Oakland Zoo is the Pitt Panthers student section.
All right.
Just because I wanted to give an extra curveball. Here's one that my personal favorite color commentaryist in all of college basketball would enjoy. Bill Walton might be a fan of the Grateful Red.
Oh, there's so many teams that are red.
Yeah, just start naming. That's Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
They're the Grateful, and they wear, it's like all red themed, but they wear tie-dye red shirts in their
that's cool.
student section. How about, so we talk about Krzyzewskiville. Got it.
Proud of
Is
you.
named after Coach Mike Krzyzewski. The Izzone is the student section where?
Oh,
Named after Tom Izzo, their coach.
you are asking me to pull out some deep NCAA history from my brain.
One of the perennial teams that's at the top of the Big Ten. They're currently fourth in the
Michigan
BPI,
State.
despite not even being ranked. Yeah,
Oh,
Michigan State.
man.
The Izzo, so they named theirs after their coach as well. How about the Nut House?
Would someone actually have a squirrel as a mascot? Is that
Ooh.
the tie-in?
You're clever. No, it is the Ohio State Buckeyes.
No.
Because the Buckeye is a little nut,
No, I hate that.
and they call themselves the Nut House.
Get out of here, the Ohio State.
The Rowdy Reptiles would, of course, be one of those
Gators,
yep,
Florida?
the University of Florida
Ah,
Gators.
I got one.
Uh-huh.
There it is.
Locally around here, how about the Herd? You familiar with that one?
There it is, Utah State.
Yeah, it is. And they have, as I was looking up the different things, they're one of many schools that claim to have started after it was a thing in soccer, the I Believe That We Gonna Win
Yeah.
thing.
You can keep that to yourselves, the Herd.
But they are not the only one. There was another school that tried to like trademark it, and
Yeah,
I thought
gosh.
I've been seeing it crop up in a lot of Utah State things. So yeah, that's just some of the creatively punny names that go along with college basketball student sections. I'm partial to the Rock, Roar of Cougars.
I am old enough to remember when
We do
the
it.
Rock was created.
Whoa, what was like the idea behind it? Do you know any of that? Like,
There actually used to be a rock that the students, or not the
oh,
students,
like a
but
rock, ROCK rock, like a rock. Okay.
Yeah. So when they started it, I mean, it was always Roar of Cougars, but they would bring out, they may still have it. It was mostly at LaVell Edwards Stadium, but all the players would hit it on their way
one
out
of those
the
like
tunnel.
ceremonial, like
Yeah.
touch the rock before, yeah.
So it was like a double meaning.
Gotcha.
There was a rock and the rock. Yep.
Honey, I love it. Well, that is a peek inside the different student sections across the country as we applaud the dedicated students here locally at BYU that are camping out in preparation for making the Marriott Center as loud as humanly possible for the game later tonight between BYU and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. When we come back, we're going to take a look back for a second at that Santa Clara game that happened on Thursday with a member of their broadcast team, a member of the student radio team, as a matter of fact, for Santa Clara. He'll tell us a little bit more about the Broncos when we come back. Welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. My name is Cole Wissinger, and right over there, Sydney Carlson. Earlier this week, before we got focused on Gonzaga, you got to take one game at a time, and it was Santa Clara, and the guys took care of business. But right before that game, Thursday morning, I had a chance to sit down with their student play-by-play man, Spencer McLaughlin. Here's that conversation. When talking the history of Santa Clara basketball, it really starts and ends with one particular All-American that you had go through there.
He has a large banner in the Levy Center that will forever remain, and he was responsible for the last trip to the NCAA tournament for Santa Clara. He led them to that March Madness Dance 3 of his 4 years. His name was Steve Nash. You might have heard of him.
Yep.
Went on to have a pretty prolific NBA career. And
two-time league MVP, All-Star, 8 or 9 seasons. Pretty okay.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Yeah. He turned out to be a pretty good player, and I think it's just a testament to the idea that some guys just need a chance to play and show themselves, and not everyone's got that one or two, noticeable characteristics that a certain coach is looking for. But you just need a chance to play, and then you can go on and do anything. I mean, you look at guys who have come out of the West Coast Conference. I mean, people might think it's a mid-major, doesn't produce a lot of NBA guys, and doesn't have a nationally relevant team. But then you look at teams like Gonzaga and St. Mary's, and they're in the tournament every year, winning games, competing. And, BYU is certainly in that mix this year as well. And, I think it's just really awesome to watch a conference like that grow into something where you have that many competitive teams, and you maybe don't have the resources and the name brand recognition that a lot of Power 5 conferences do.
Yeah, I mean, BYU wasn't even in the WCC when Steve Nash was playing, but I still count it as a point of pride for our conference now that guys like Steve Nash, and when I talk to the San Francisco Dons fellow, you got Bill Russell coming out of there. Like, we have these names that have been in the WCC conference over the years, and it proves that we're established as well.
Yeah, and Bill Russell, I think, is a name that nobody thinks about when they think of the West Coast Conference, for casual fans at least. I mean, they know Bill Russell if you're a basketball fan, of course, because Bill Russell. If you're a basketball fan, you don't know who Bill Russell is, you're probably not that much of a basketball fan. And I don't think a lot of people realize that he was at San Francisco and that they were winning national championships. And, it's the same Don school that we play against every year. And it is a testament, once again, to what the West Coast Conference can produce.
I agree. Any other Santa Clarans that casual fans might recognize, or even if they don't, you want to educate us a little bit about what other guys that have come out of the school over the years?
Well, I think the most notable alum recently for the basketball team has been Jared Brownridge, and he is playing in the G League right now for the Philadelphia 76ers, and I remember watching him as a freshman. He was a senior that year, but I remember watching him, and he played 40 minutes a game regularly, which is impossibly difficult to do. And he was running around off screens the entire game. The entire defense was trying to focus in on him, but he would just hit tough shot after tough shot. And, I met him a couple times. I know it was always his dream to play in the NBA, and he's really not that far off. I mean, he led the G League in three-pointers made last season, and he continues to put up strong performances time and time again for him. And the Sixers are a team that could maybe use another shooter or two off the bench. And I really don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all within the next year or 2 or 3 or whatever for Brownridge to get the call up to the NBA. And, I think that'd definitely be a point of pride for Santa Clara. And I think Jared would have earned it.
We are getting ready for a basketball game tonight, but what are some of the other sports on campus that Rough Riders, the fans, get excited for?
Well, the biggest one outside of men's basketball is women's soccer. Our women's soccer team is the most successful sport on campus by winning percentage and national relevance. I mean, they're in and out of the top 25 just about every single year. They've been to their March Madness tournament. At the end of the year, each of the last 4 or 5 years, they made it to the Elite Eight a couple of years ago. They were in the Sweet 16 this year, and ultimately ended up losing in that round. But I mean, they're a nationally relevant program, and they're the last. I believe they're the last Santa Clara team to win a national championship at the Division I level. That was in the early 2000s, and they lock and reload every single year, and they've always got good players, and they've got a couple of prominent alums as well. Julie Ertz, the wife of Zach Ertz and star of the U.S. Women's National Team.
Oh, you betcha.
She went to Santa Clara and played her soccer here. And
no way.
Yeah. That program is really is really strong, and I don't think arguably the best on campus. I think you can just say it is the best and most successful on campus, and they've got good crowds. They always do, and that's kind of how it works in college sports. Is if you win, then people show up, and women's soccer is not an exception here in Santa Clara.
As I said, there is a basketball game tonight. Now, you get the chance to either look like Nostradamus or to look a little bit silly, because we're talking on a Thursday. This actually, by the time folks listen to it, it is Saturday, and so they'll know the result. But I'm going to ask you anyway. What are you expecting for the game tonight?
Well, I think that BYU opening as a 15-point favorite is telling about where these teams are at in their seasons right now. Santa Clara, I think, is at its lowest point. There have been a lot of high points this year. Mm-hmm. They've played their non-conference schedule the way that they should have. Came into WCC play 13-2. They knocked off St. Mary's in Moraga. They'll get another crack at them next week, but they beat them on the road for the first time since 2014, I think it was.
And which BYU did not do this year. They got us on the road.
BYU did not too. I mean, it's St. Mary's. They're good year in, year out, and that was a really great win. And then there have been some ups and downs, some good wins and some less than spectacular losses for Santa Clara. But right now they're in the midst of their first losing streak of the year. They've lost 3 in a row, and BYU is ranked in the top 25 for the first time this year.
First time since Jimmer.
First time since Jimmer Fredette. That's correct. I remember Jimmer Fredette. I picked them to get to the Final Four in my bracket. He let me down.
He let a lot of us down. That's okay.
Yeah, well, it's tough out there. But anyway, you look at tonight. I think BYU will win pretty comfortably because they're so tough at home. And Santa Clara right now, I think, is trying to figure out how to end the season strong. And I think that the game will really be decided in the first 10 minutes or so. That's kind of how Santa Clara's road games have been. Is sometimes they get away from them early and then they're not able to bounce back. But the reason they picked up that win at St. Mary's back in January was they got off to a strong start and they hung around. They built a lead and kept at it. But if Santa Clara lets BYU run out in transition, knock down a bunch of threes in the early going and the crowd gets into it, it's darn near impossible for just about anyone in the West Coast Conference to come back. And I think that'd be a tough ask for Santa Clara. So if they are going to get the win, they have to control the first few minutes, and they have to keep the crowd in check because I know how rowdy they get up there in Provo.
Well, we'll know by the time I'm listening to this again, we'll know what has happened, and I know what I'm rooting for, but it's understandable. You're on the other side. You're allowed to keep that rooting interest.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I think will happen, but that's not what I want to happen, man. I want them to go into the game against Pacific on Saturday with the fresh off of an upset and, kind of have it be a turning point here at the end of the season with 4 conference games left. So, that's certainly what I'm pulling for down here in the Bay Area.
That's fair, my man. Well, Spencer McLaughlin, thank you so much for coming on the Cougar Tailgate today.
Hey, my pleasure, Cole. Anytime.
Thank you again, Spencer, for giving us a peek into Santa Clara basketball. And thank you again to Tom Hudson earlier today, the play-by-play man for Gonzaga, teaching us a little bit about that opponent that is coming up just about 7 hours. A theme that ran through both of their interviews really was the magnitude of the Marriott Center, that it's so important for an away team to be able to sustain their energy and keep BYU from going on these giant runs where the fans can really impact the course of the game.
Right.
We kind of hope that the fans will impact the course of the game. And so what do we got planned for the game tonight? What's a little extra incentive? If the number 2 team in the nation isn't enough to get you in the seats, if experiencing weather in the teens and camping out isn't enough to get you there, what else do we have?
We are bringing in a super fun halftime show, actually. There's going to be if you love dogs, which you should because dogs are amazing, there's a dog show. Christian and Scooby, I believe he was on America's Got Talent. So if you're more of like a pop culture person, but we're also going to be able to recognize our seniors, which is something we haven't really had for a number of years. And this year we have 7
Whoa.
Yeah, 7 seniors, and some of them are names that you immediately recognize. Some are role players, but going to be the last time you're ever going to be able to see Yoli Childs play on the Marriott Center court. So
sad.
And a TJ Haws, same way. I mean, there's so many guys that have been such like mainstays of this team. Dalton Nixon. Well, Dalton will be there.
Yeah,
he'll be there to support. But and Jake and Zach and Evan Troy and Taylor Mon, those are our senior guys.
They're going to walk out with the little roses and their family and things
Yep,
like that.
yep.
That's the senior night jazz.
Senior night, there's going to be a blanket like presentation for each of them, and yeah, it'll be a good time.
There you go. Just one more reason to come out to the game, and also, of course, to cheer on the Cougars in the seniors' last game. And as we prepare to head down to the WCC tournament, we're getting ready. You know, there's one more actual game. Because it's Gonzaga, it does feel like the regular season's over.
Yeah.
Pepperdine's next week. We'll talk about that next week. And then we're going to stay on the air because there's going to be a WCC tournament that BYU will play in. And after that, there's an NCAA tournament that it seems like BYU will likely be playing in.
I mean, if all things keep going the way they're going, 100% they're in. Here's a question for you, Cole.
Yeah.
As we get to the tail end.
Yeah.
If you could only pick one, a win against Gonzaga tonight or a win against them in the championship of the WCC tournament, what are you taking?
Ooh, so if I get to pick, I'm taking it in the tournament because I think that's just less likely to happen. And so I'll trust the boys to just get it done tonight on their own without me magicking it into existence. So then I just get
What a politician's answer. My goodness.
But yeah, I mean, but if you get it in the WCC tournament, it means you would have won, and so that's an automatic berth. There is still, I guess, because we're technically a mid-major, there's a possibility that BYU isn't in the NCAA tournament. But if you get it there, it's guaranteed.
100%. And
But if you got it here, it's home. It's the seniors.
Is home. I know I want it for the seniors, but I also would just love to have that WCC title. We've never gotten one. Seems like Gonzaga always gets it, and I'm sick of it enough. So.
We're coming on 10 years in the WCC. A good basketball team for all 10 of those years. Nothing to hang your head over if you're a BYU fan, and yet not a single conference championship.
Right. I would love to take that trophy from Gonzaga's cold dead hands. That's all. That's all.
Right. That's all
if I'm picking in the tournament, although I desperately want to win. More than anything, I would love it to be close going into the last 4 minutes of the game when we do our turbulence.
Oh, yes.
I will say last year we were down by like 20 points. And turbulence just doesn't have the same hype up quality when you're down by 20. So
it's good for a couple baskets in a row.
Yeah.
But not 10.
Yeah.
So BYU, but they'll do their thing. And as always, when the question is either or, the answer should always be just ¿por qué no los dos? Let's take out both of them.
True.
Let's take it all.
Let's.
We will be talking about Pepperdine next week. We'll recap what happened with Gonzaga and also be looking forward to that inevitable WCC tournament and the stylings of it. We got plenty more to talk about as we head into March, the best time of the year if you're a basketball fan at the college level. But as for today, that wraps up our conversation. We are a production of BYU Radio. If you missed any of the show today, remember to check out the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. Over there at Sydney Carlson, I'm Cole Wissinger. Gonzaga is tonight, and go Cougs.